Hello once again, players of good video games. My name is Pell, and this is once again coming from my white room. Now, today I'm going to be talking about The Last of Us from Naughtydog, and this is the team that came up with Uncharted, that great franchise. This is The Last of Us, and if you've seen anything on it for the last 2 weeks, you've seen that it's gotten numerous perfect scores. I just finished it last night. This review will not be including the multiplayer because I don't do multiplayer. Just really quick, I'll be talking about the ending to the game after the credits of this video, so if you want to see my thoughts on that, stay tuned for the ending of that. There will also potentially be very small spoilers throughout this first part of the video, so keep that in mind as you watch. Getting right into it, the game mainly focuses on Joel and Ellie. Joel is this guy who we are introduced to in the very first part of the game, the prologue to this game. We see him 20 years before the main story takes place, and he's basically this father who works late and just has this daughter, who is just the cutest, nicest little girl in the world. And something happens, the outbreak begins. Fast forward 20 years later, we have Joel with this girl named Tess. Tess is a character who's basically what seems to be Joel's best friend, and she is basically his traveling companion. They do routes, they sneak stuff out and into the quarantine zone, and other things like that. She is essentially his partner. In this first part of the game, when you are with Tess, it basically introduces you to the whole gameplay of the game. You get introduced to fighting, you get introduced to stealth, healing, using your backpack, forging things. I'll get more into this in gameplay. Yeah, so you go along, and then you eventually meet up with this girl named Marlene. She's the leader of this resistance group, which is called the Fireflies. And she essentially requests Joel and Tess to go to smuggle something out to an area outside of the quarantine zone. Joel and she asks she asks them to do this in exchange for weapons that she got from someone. They go and they quickly find out that the girl that they're supposed to smuggle out is Ellie, and she's this, I think, 13, 14-year-old girl who she was born into this area, so she knows, this is all that she's known. She doesn't know life before the outbreak. That makes her a very interesting character during cutscenes and different interactions with Joel. So that's basically how the game begins. Joel and Tess are set with the task of getting Ellie to this certain location, and the game takes off from there. The game is in 4 different parts: summer, fall, winter, and spring. And that's kind of how it progresses. In my opinion, summer was the longest, it's got the most juice in it, and then fall, winter, and spring are kind of just their own little short story arcs that progress the story. So yeah, that's the main part with the plot. Graphic-wise, the game is just amazing to look at. The environments are detailed spectacularly, the character models are just done so well, so detailed. Just, they look really realistic, especially with the CGI cutscenes, just how the lighting is working. There's a scene with the car in the rain, and it just looks so realistic. I was seriously blown away by how amazing this game looked. Getting into gameplay, the game is essentially a third-person shooter, stealth game. Fighting mechanics work kind of like Gears of War in a sense, where you get behind cover and then you look up, you shoot, and then you get back down. Well, you have a numerous amount of weapons at your disposal for this. You have your pistols, you have like 5 or 6 different pistols. Then you have a shotgun, a hunting rifle, a bow and arrow, and a flamethrower. So you get a bunch of different weapons at your disposal. It's really nice, and I found myself using almost all of them at different parts of the game. So there is reason for all of these guns to be here. You're not just set with your own certain weapons. You kind of go with what you have at the moment. They usually work pretty well. Stealth-wise, you essentially... this is mainly when you're going up against clickers, which is basically these enemies which are infected, and and are your essentially main enemies of the game. They're blind, so you basically have to sneak up to them. It's a one-hit kill if they catch you, which kind of sucks a lot of the time. I died multiple times from this. You sneak up to them, you grab them, and then you stab them, and they're down. That's how that works. When you have regular enemies, either humans or these enemies called runners, who are just recently infected people. You basically sneak up behind them. You can either choose to strangle them or you can stab them, like with the clickers. And so that's how the stealth stuff works. You can also use the bow and arrow, which I found myself using a lot towards the end of the game, as a stealth weapon. If you have an enemy who is just looking for you, and none of them see you yet, you can take them out very quietly and very quickly using the bow and arrow. I found myself using it a lot, and it was very helpful. There's multiple collectibles in this game as well. You have just a bunch of documents, you have pills, you have a lot of ammo that you can pick up, and supplies. There's little pendants, firefly pendants, that you can find throughout the area. There are comic books that you can also pick out and find for Ellie. In terms of getting items, you basically have to form all your items. You find certain items throughout the game, like tape or scissors or whatever, and you use these to create different weapons for your disposal, or items to help you progress. Either you can make health packs, or you can make Molotovs. Both items require the same basic materials, so I thought that was kind of interesting. You can also make shivs. That's the main thing that you use to stab things. And then you can also form different types of weapons. And this system worked really well. For the upgrade system, you have 7 different slots that you can upgrade. You find pills throughout the game. You find a certain number of pills. You can upgrade items based on how many pills you have. And that's how that works. In terms of getting around, every so often you'll find a spot where it'll just be a flooded area, and Ellie cannot swim, and so you have to find a way to get her across. Oftentimes it's just with a board of wood that you just have to figure out where it is and then get it down to her, and then move her when she's on the board of wood to wherever you need her to be. It worked fairly well. It was kind of just a puzzle that was thrown in every so often. It worked. It wasn't too bad, and I liked it. I'm probably forgetting something else that I should talk about with gameplay, but there's just so much in this game that's hard to remember sometimes. So getting into enjoyment, I really, really did enjoy this game. There were a few glitches and issues every so often. Like, I would see graphical glitches every so often. I would just be walking around and there'd be something happening, or an enemy would go through a wall. Well, not like run through a wall, but I would hit it, and then there would just be some very small issues that would come up during gameplay. One thing that I did like is that there's this kind of boss-like enemy, which you don't really fight. You fight like maybe 4 of them throughout the whole game, and they show up in the first part of the game, and then you fight 1, I think, each section. It's just 1 every so often. You never get mobbed by them. They don't become just a regular boss towards the end, or a regular enemy towards the end, which I really like, because oftentimes you see games where you'll have to fight a mini boss, and then towards the end of the game, those enemies will just come in waves, and you'll have to try to take all of them out. That never happens in this. It's basically these huge fat enemies with spores all on their body, and they shoot spores at you. They're not too deadly, honestly, unless they get their hands on you, which sucks. And then, once you figure out a method for taking out a lot of enemies, it's actually really simple to get through the game. I took a long time in summer for some reason, maybe because I was just getting used to it, or I think it is the longest part of the game. But after you get out of summer and basically the main tutorial area, the game really takes off. It gets really interesting, especially in winter. Winter was probably the most interesting section for me, just because of different parts that you have to deal with. If you want to know my thoughts on anything else in Last of Us besides the multiplayer, let me know in the comments, and I'll be happy to let you know my thoughts on them. So, but yeah, that's my review of Last of Us. I really liked it. I definitely recommend getting it if you have a PS3. And so, yeah, like I said before, I will be talking about the ending to the game in just a second. So, stay tuned for that if you want to see my thoughts on that. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. I'd appreciate that immensely. And as always, my good people, my name is Nick Pell. And once again, keep on gaming. And if you are still watching, you are here to see my thoughts on the ending to The Last of Us. So spoiler alert, if you have not finished the game, do not keep watching this. Chris Torres, I'm talking to you. The last section is in spring, but I want to talk about winter really quick. At the very end of fall, you see Joel, he gets injured. He is essentially very fatally injured, and he could die at any second. You basically have to play as Ellie in winter, trying to get help. You see her hunting. I thought that was a really cool idea, that you play as both Joel and Ellie back and forth throughout winter. I thought that was a really cool way to do it. You basically see Ellie going through all this stuff, and then Joel wakes up, and then he has to go and go basically through the same route. Not as treacherous, but he still has to get there and help her out. So I thought Ellie's little side story right there, that was really, really cool, seeing her kind of deal with being on her own and seeing how she will survive like that. And then playing as her as well. I thought that was a really neat thing. And then in spring, we get to the Firefly lab, and I kind of saw this coming when they said they had to take out her brain, or at least take out part of her brain, and that essentially she would die. You have Marlene there. Joel wakes up, and he's in this big lab area, and essentially they tell him that Ellie's going to have to die for them to get the cure. Throughout the journey of this game, Joel has become basically so attached to Ellie, and you see this throughout the game as it progresses, and he has essentially thought of her, in my opinion, as his own daughter by this point. He has kind of replaced Sarah with Ellie. That is what causes him to kind of go on his rampage. He essentially will not allow them to kill off Ellie, because that would be a very bad thing, and it goes against everything that he's kind of promised her. When at the very beginning of spring, you see them talking about what'll happen after they get the cure and everything. Basically, like, he'll teach her to swim, and he says it'll just be them taking a little bit of blood and it'll be done and over with. The fact that you have to basically take out the rest of the Fireflies makes it a really interesting thing. And then at the very end, you see Ellie, you save her, and then you have a confrontation with Marlene. Not a boss fight or anything, but essentially Joel had to make a choice. And Marlene says this is what she would want. She would want to find a cure, and if this is the only way to do it, then have it be done. Joel obviously disagrees with this. He shoots her and kills Marlene, and takes off with Ellie. And that's essentially where the game ends. It has a little bit of an epilogue, but and Joel basically has to lie to Ellie to make her believe him. He tells her that there are a bunch of kids like her who all have the cure and that are all immune, and essentially the Fireflies have stopped looking for a cure because it's impossible to find one, apparently. Ellie is kind of in disbelief from what it looks like, and she just kind of goes along with it. We have the epilogue, and you play as Ellie again, and you're just kind of following Joel, no fighting or anything. And you get to the very end cutscene, and she basically makes Joel swear that everything he told her was true, and Joel confirms that, and he basically fulfills his lie, and Ellie just ends up accepting it, because what else is she gonna do? That idea kind of leads me to believe that there might be a sequel to this game. I don't know how they'll do it, or if there even will be one, but the idea that Ellie could still find out that Joel was lying, that he basically killed all chances of the cure. If she was to find that out, like, towards the end of the second game or something like that, it could create a very, very interesting dynamic for the third and final game of a possible trilogy. And just kind of make Joel the bad guy, because one of my friends told me, who had also finished the game, that Joel has essentially become the bad guy by the end of the game. He is basically stopping all hopes for a cure. You find a recording in the final level where you have a doctor that's saying, like, this is our hope for a cure, this is the day that mankind show us that we can survive this thing. And he kind of kills all hopes for that, and because of his selfish intentions. And I feel like that's going to come back to bite him in the ass sometime if Ellie, when Ellie gets to be older, like a teenager or an adult. I don't know. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the ending to The Last of Us. One thing I really would have liked to see to allude to a sequel would have been right after the final cutscene where it just goes to black after Ellie says okay, just showing Summer as like it's gone full circle and potentially another game will start out there. Yeah, that's my thoughts on the ending to The Last of Us. Leave comments down below on your thoughts of it, and yeah, overall, really good game, highly recommended. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. I'd appreciate it immensely. And as always, my good people, my name is Nick Pell, and once again, keep on gaming.